Well, here we are once again for Horror Nights History. This is now part 3. It makes it a trilogy. That is, if I can finish it in part 3. Fat chance. For Halloween Horror Nights 13. A certain nice director tried to cast you in the performance of your life. I was talking about the different island scare zones that year, and I had just gotten over talking about Jurassic Park, and which was called Night Prey. It's P-R-E-Y, not P-R-A-Y. That would have been something else entirely. Although, when they scared you, you might have been praying like, "Oh, Jesus! Oh, God!" You never know. It could happen. Anyway, let's go on to the Lost Continent, which that year became Immortal Island. Immortal Island. The theme for Immortal Island, it was very similar and as far as some of the characters running about, although Nightmare wasn't present, of course. But the theme was a battle between the forces of fire and ice, tying in lovely with dueling dragons and the fire and ice dragon roller coasters, which used to be one of the main attractions of Islands Adventure. Now you get to ride Harry Potter dragons in their version of the Wizarding Tri-Wizard Dragon Challenge or something, except there's only 2 dragons, but of course. But they're not the same as Fire and Ice for those of us who love the old way. Oh well. Enough bitching about what they did to that ride. The rest of Wizarding World is apparently pretty cool, and I should go and enjoy it one of these days and go to Ollivander's and get my wand so that I don't have to use a pencil when I'm casting spells. Yes. But it's a rubber pencil. Rubber pencil! Rubber pencil! Yeah, butthole. I'm a... No. Stop the Nicolas Cage. Okay. This is about 7 years ago, not 2 weeks ago. So let's get back to it. Yes. Immortal Island, we featured the forces of frozen coldness represented by the Ice Queen. And she also appeared this year, for those who might have missed her first appearance, with her eyes sort of closed shut weirdly and with much décolletage, to use the French term, va-va-voom, and her frozen scariness, sort of like something out of the Russian folklore of the ice, the Snow Queen, or perhaps the Japanese Yuki Onna, to use folkloric comparisons. Go look it up. The Ice Queen was there, and her counterpart was the Fire King, who was more of a demonic figure with a mask that covered his face, and he was the Lord of Fire. And so these two rulers of the respective elements were at odds with each other, and who won? I don't know. I think they should have got together and, because Fire King, Ice Queen, they made a wonderful couple. Of course, after the first night, there'd only be a puddle left, but, oh well. Matchmaker that I am. It would have been hot and cold to see it happening. Sorry. Also featured the chainsaw drill team in the person of orcs with chainsaws, which I talked about last time, and yeah, they did that again. But this time they had the lovely rat lady being carted about by medieval-looking monks and minions, so that you could see her now once again presented in the park on the street rather than in a house in this area. And finally, of course, Seuss Landing once more became Boo-Ville. And once more, it was largely just a place with a little bit of fog and nothing else. But I believe this was the year that, now that Grinchmas had been happening, they'd had the Grinch character, but he wasn't in your face trying to scare you. No, if you walked by and looked off toward the buildings, sort of moving slowly from side to side, almost gliding back and forth, was the Grinch, almost like a silhouette in the fog, doing strange, grinchy, haunting movements, which I suppose if you were 3 years old might seem a bit spooky. But what the hell would a 3-year-old be doing at horror nights anyways? The parents must be ding-dongs to bring the kids to that. And, you know, all of... Here. It should be... Says right here. It says, blah 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 blah. It should say here somewhere. Sorry about the delay. Once again, Paula would have my head for putting dead space in my I thought there was a disclaimer on the... Oh, here. Yep, here it is. You know, that's odd. They used to have something on here saying that the event was intended for adults, but I don't see it. Maybe they didn't do that yet. You think it would be self-evident and obvious, but there's stuff on there like, you know, children should be accompanied by parents at all times, and if they're under a certain height, they can't go on certain rides. I guess they hadn't yet decided to put that little disclaimer saying that, you know, this is a frightening, adult-oriented Halloween event not intended for children under a certain age. But, as I said, that should have been self-evident. I guess once you get the brochure, they figure you're there already. Oh well. Okay. So that covers that. So now let's talk about houses now at last. This year, there were not 5 houses, as it had been for a few years now, but 6. The number of houses went up for the first time in quite a few years. 6 houses. 6 houses. Yes, they could utilize more areas of Islands of Adventure as well as the sound stages to do 6 houses to thoroughly get you going. One place that wasn't utilized that year, oddly enough, was that beautiful warehouse they had built just to house Halloween Horror Night houses. And it was a bit peculiar because even though there was no house in that house, and it's not used as a guest area at all, it was quite visibly present in the map on the brochure, which led many to suspect that it had originally intended to be another house in that location. And there had been quite a bit of talk about an extreme house, where you'd have to be 18 or up to go in, and you'd have to sign on a waiver in your own blood. Yes, saying that you would not hold Universal liable for anything that could happen to you while in this house, and that should you die, your soul would belong to them forever. Well, maybe not quite that way worded, but and maybe actually in ink. But this was bandied about quite a bit, and actually I believe talks had begun about a possibility of such a house. But I have it on fairly good authority that the plan was actually for 2004. Perhaps they'd thought about it and decided to wait until 2004 to do the house. That never came either. And I'll talk more about the Extreme House concept when I get to Halloween Horror Nights 2014 in later videos, if I ever finish this one and get there. So, 6 houses. Once again, we shall take the clockwise path that was enforced on you by the lovely little minions of Universal when you entered the park. Well, if you entered early enough in the evening before they opened the stuff on the other side. So, going to your left from Port of Evil, passing through Toxic City, you find yourself in hide and shriek, and there was your first house in the Popeye Bilge-Rat Barge queue area, Popeye and Bluto's wet water ride. And using that area, they decided, taking advantage of portholes and other somewhat nautical appearance of it, they built a nautically themed house for the first time since the Titanic back in '98. This was called Ship of Screams, which oddly enough fit in with the whole Titanic because the Titanic was called the Ship of Dreams. That was one of the selling points for people to ride that lovely ocean liner, which of course on the maiden voyage encountered an iceberg and glug 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 went down into the briny deep. Yes. Ship of Screams, however, was supposedly an ocean liner that was found abandoned with nobody on it, like the Marie Celeste or something. And when you got on the ship, the ghosts began to appear of the crew and passengers. And it was quite nice. You saw the crew members and passengers as you walk past their cabins, and some of the bus boys or whatever you call them on an ocean liner, and ghostly versions of Julie from Love Boat. Well, not really, but whatever the similar capacity would be. It was sort of like that. It was rather a nice little house, I think. Yes. Then we have, going further into Night Prey, as they called Jurassic Park that year. The first house you might encounter was in the the same Thunder Falls Terrace, which was a seasonal restaurant, and you would go in from the back, and you have to go on this long line round back behind it to get in. And I think that was the year they had some interesting people working the line, because it could be a very long line. And one of them was a little person, what you might call a dwarf or a midget, but just be polite and say a little person who was a female, like a carnival performer, who was doing some kind of a sketch with another person there, because it had a carnivalesque feeling to it. It was Funhouse of Fear, and this was like Jack's famous Funhouse without Jack. It was full of clowns, insane mad clowns, but not Jack, other insane mad clowns, and strange illusions and mirrors that would turn out to have something else in them. And actually it was kind of scary a couple of ways if you're afraid of clowns, because they're quite hideous and nasty. Then the next house in Jurassic Park was one of the all-time classic haunted houses of Halloween Horror Nights history. Located in the Jurassic Park Discovery Center. Actually, I skipped one again. I'll go back to it. Oh, hello. Who's here? Hey, no, not the T-shirt. Excuse me. Don't. She almost got on the shirt. No, Bob. I don't want cat hair on the shirt. White cat fur on a black shirt. Not good thing. And I don't want cat hair on my very nice collector's item 13 shirt. Naughty pussy. Naughty, naughty, naughty. I'm going to take you into the catacombs and let the peckers play with you. Well, I would if I was allowed to and it was still open. Anyway, where was I? Talking about yes, in the Jurassic Park Discovery Center, which of course is a quick service restaurant, but huge structure, and they could put a haunted house in there. And you went around to the back of it and entered from behind, where they had set up like you're going into an insane asylum. It was Psychoscarapy. Yes, the first original Psychoscarapy. And it was a legendary house that took you into an asylum of demented madmen and women who took over the asylum, killed off all of the doctors and nurses, and some of them, there was still some wounded walking about with, being mutilated by the mad people. And if you went through it, it was just quite insane, and padded cells and looniness. One scare I remember to this day that haunts me, And I don't know how they pulled it off. You're in a big room, and it's... Oh, I ran out of time. This will have to be in the next video.